So I'm just about to start replacing this scuttle panel on this Volkswagen T4, which is a 2.5 turbo diesel. It's a 2002 model, XAA, UK model. It's got the right-hand drive, so the windscreen wiper has to be in this position. The default hole in the scuttle panel that I'm putting it on is there, so you have to drill that out. My model has hinges which also are spot welded onto the scuttle panel, whereas some models they're spot welded, I think, into the inner wing here. They haven't actually seen one of those myself, but a lot of people seem to have that. It's going to be a bit of a bastard to get the bonnet lined up once I spot weld the new hinges on. I'm going to have to be pretty careful with that. I've marked what spot welds I can see with dots, but I can't see them all because I've been grinding out rust where I can't see them. I've just put little circles for like approximate positions. There's quite a lot of spot welds. Some people say there's about 40. There's also a line along this bottom row here. The reason I'm doing it is because the rust's pretty far progressed. It doesn't look too bad in some places, but there are some holes going through in a number of places, and basically the metal's got so thin in a lot of places that I just don't feel good using the old scuttle anymore. I think I'd rather just whip it out and get a new one in. It's a bit nerve-wracking because I've not got any real formal welding experience. I've done a few little patches with a welder I bought from mate. Here's the new scuttle panel I've got, which I bought off a UK company called Steel Wizard. They've been really good. This is the windscreen wiper hole I'm going to have to drill out for the right-hand drive versions. If you're somewhere in Europe and you've got a left-hand drive version of the vehicle, then you won't have to do that. The reason I'm doing this is because there's no videos online about how to do any of this, so I thought someone down the line might be helped out by this. To drill out these spot welds, you need a spot weld drill bit, which is quite a bit flat-headed. You see, it's most drill bits are a bit more dome-headed than that, but this is so it doesn't go through and into the under panel too deep. Yeah, so we'll use that to get the spot welds out. Had a bit of trouble getting this aerial out. The telescopic parts are all sort of seized together, so I don't know what to do about that. I'm just going to try and lift out the scuttle panel over the top of it. I'm going to put a DAB aerial in to my windscreen when I reinstall it anyway. Well, anyway, I suppose I should start drilling out those welds. Okay, so that's a bit of a brown pantsing drilling session down. I think I've finally released it. It does actually seem like the whole thing is now loose on this end, and on this end, you see, this end's actually looser than the other, so it's going to be a bit hard to get around the aerial. Fortunately, this whole bit is a bit gnarled up by the process, but I'm just going to have to try and build little bits of metal into here and fix it. It's not going to be easy, but there we are. Just a note, there were a few areas like this where I couldn't find any spot welds before, and actually it turned out there weren't any behind there, so there's actually some larger stretches without any spot welds. Just give a little view around where the welds are in case anyone's having trouble with it. There are some just down here. Seems to have released the whole thing. Not going to say the bonnet catches off quite yet. It's actually the shaping of the new panel around these areas is slightly different, I've noticed. Also, these old bonnet hinges on mine have got the kind of bonnet open sensor in there. The new Scuttle panel doesn't actually have this shaped out bit to hold the sensor, so I might have to cut that off and weld it onto the new one. Also, these little drainage channels aren't available on the new one either, it's just a straight edge. So now I'm going to set to trying to get this Scuttle panel out without doing much damage to these edges, because I don't know that you can get these pre-made, and you know, they're quite complicated shapes really. They're kind of like gently rolled edges. They've got a curve on that axis, and they've also got a curve on this axis because the glass, of course, is slightly curved across the windscreen. So yeah, all those curves, you'd have to make it out of multiple pieces, I think. Anyway, that's this next stage complete. I'll try and remove that old panel now. Alright people, my hypothetical audience, it is now removed. You can see exactly where all the spot welds are. This is basically the video I wish someone had made that I could have looked at. That's why I'm making it. One little drill accident there, oh well, you'll never see it again. See a minor bit of corrosion behind on this bit, but it's not really very bad. When you're drilling for the spot welds, you can actually see this sort of like, it's a sort of seam sealer or a primer maybe. You can sort of see it come through, but I have over drilled in some places. You know, there's a skill to everything, and I guess there's a skill to drilling spot welds. Yeah, you can see this bit. This bit is the bit that always gives me sleepless nights thinking about it. It was the most corroded part of the van actually. Well, the window, I should say. Yeah, you can see it's not very pretty, and I've overground it really, and I've been trying to be careful, gone in with great detail, using a little Dremel, like a high-speed sort of die grinder. Basically, rust just keeps coming back. If you grind the rust away and just leave it for a couple of days, it'll come back where there's rust under the surface, and unfortunately that's happened a lot down here. It happens a lot actually at the top of the windscreen as well, but always in this kind of flat section up here. So I've basically welded little plates like all along there. There's about 7 or 8 little sort of plates, maybe kind of 8 to 10 centimeters long, plugging all the holes. And I've test fitted the glass, and fits back in. I used to get issues up here where the water used to leak in. There was like some holes, for instance there's a hole in the top here and all in there. The water used to trickle down the windscreen. You could see lines on the windscreen where the condensation would be displaced in the morning sometimes. But that then gets in behind the dash, and it goes into the footwell, and you'll find underneath there you get rust because it runs down behind all of the carpet into the lowest point. There's nowhere for it to go. Anyway, that's part of the reason I'm doing this whole horrible job. Right, so skipping slightly forwards, I've basically just been along, sprayed a bit of weld-free primer over the part of metal that's underneath where I took the old scuttle off. I blasted it off actually a little bit with a rotary wire brush, and then just put some weld-free primer on both sides, just sort of protect the metal a bit. And then I've been back to my scuttle panel, and I've just sketched out some dots on it where I want to drill my new spots. There's one thing I've noticed is that the thickness of this piece of metal up here is it's a bit wider than the rest of the channel. Like for illustration purposes, I use this little bit of card that I can sit on the top here. But as it shoots along, you can see it's no longer sat right up against that part of the channel. So basically I've just slid a pen along the top of this to sketch out a line I need to grind off. At least I hope I've got to grind it off, because it's actually a really tight fit. Also the end of this part of the panel is a lot longer than the original one, which was like a bit thinner. So again, that might need to be chopped off to actually get it to fit under there. I've drilled out another spot just to make that a little tiny bit looser so I could scooch the panel underneath it. So that's another step. Alright, the next bit is I've been having a bit of trouble getting the new scuttle to fit, so I've used a couple of mole grips to just grip it to the old scuttle. You can see that on this end of the new one it really comes out a fair bit longer than the old one, which is in some ways nice because it underlaps the thin ground metal that I've got on the edges of the window. And again, similar affair on this side. There's not a particularly uniform gap going down the inside there either yet, but I figure when you put it on the van, the things that don't seem to move are the spindles for the windscreen wipers. So really, as long as you can get those holes to line up, the rest of it just needs to be forced back and tack welded onto the support behind the scuttle panel. So yeah, I'm thinking about basically just napping off a little bit on the side there, and hopefully I'll be able to scooch the new panel in. As it is, it just keeps getting jammed, but you can see by the alignment of the holes and stuff that it's very almost there. It just, I guess they make the panels maybe a little bit too big for some reason, maybe it's just in case the edges get damaged or something like that. So yeah, I thought I'd include this as it's interesting material. So coming to fitting this scuttle panel now, the fit isn't ideal. It's a bit high on this side. It doesn't really want to go down flush against the mating surface. It's actually alright over on the passenger side, and holding it in place to get some central welds in so we can start in the centre and push out the slack in the metal line from the centre is quite hard. So basically rigged up a little pulley system with a bit of paracord, so you can basically just got the missus to tension it, and then hopefully we can whack some spot welds in, hold it in place, and then iron out the creases as we go back to the sides. Going to give that a go now. Okay, so the next update is with the string we've managed to drill in and locate a screw here. I'll also put one over this side on the passenger side, which is married up really nice. Still though, we're really out on the driver's side, although it doesn't look too bad now, but what we're having to do is I didn't really want to drill into this top band because it goes down behind the dashboard, harder to patch the holes, but basically with a wedge pushing the whole panel up as much as possible. Next one, I'm just going to drill a hole probably here, push it up, screw it right down against, so the screw will pull it into the metalwork there, and the plan is just to go along maybe kind of sort of 4-5 inches at a time, just doing that, and the extra length should iron out into the channel at the side here. Then we'll test fit the window and hopefully it'll fit. If it does, then obviously I'll weld up, and hopefully we'll see you there next. Right, okay, I've got it pretty much tensioned back now. You can see I've basically put these little self-drilling screws, which are, these are the screws if you want to know what I'm dealing with. They're like 4.8 by 20 mils, but you can use anything really. They've got a little drill head on the bottom of them. I didn't use the drill head actually, I used a little 3.5 mil steel bit. But basically, yeah, all of this side from the central wiper spline has had to be crushed in using these screws before it really just bow out. It's just the curvature of the panel, I think. The mould that they're made in, I believe, is probably slightly out of alignment or something, because online it seems that other people have had the same problem. So this, I believe, is just sort of the go-to method of doing it. So yeah, now I'm going to test the window for fit. I'll feel a lot better if I know that it fits. If not, then back to a drawing board. Okay, I'll try that now. Right, okay, I've lifted the glass in. Just sort of checking for the fit. I haven't actually put the seal on the glass yet, but it seems fairly constant all the way around. Another thing I need to check is when I put the wings on, how they interact with this bit, because that's like a new thing. That's one of the next things I need to check before I really weld up. But yeah, I mean, it looks pretty promising at the moment. The method with the screws is definitely something you want to use if you're doing this job. Absolutely. I don't know how you do it without it, unless you use rivets or something like that. Okay, next I'll try the wings. So the next update on this, I've test fitted the window. Now I've put a seal on it. There it is with seal all around the edges. It does fit. It's quite tight actually. I think basically it should go in all right as long as we kind of maybe put a ratchet strap along the top and bottom and just like crush it in once it's got the adhesive in. So yeah, I'm just about to start welding up. In fact, I've put a few spot welds in already. Yeah, I'll do a little time lapse of me welding it up. Okay, so I've whacked a few welds on along here, starting at the centre. I've not gone over that way yet. It's moving my way along. So I've got one of the screws in there. So I've taken these screws out, and it's still actually fairly, well, it's actually stayed well down. You might have seen in the little time lapse I put up, I was just using a hammer and a piece of wood just to dolly it down, because it was still coming up a bit between some of these screws. So hopefully I haven't really distorted it. I mean, it looks a little bit like I might have dented it about there. But I mean, it looks fairly good down the side. I just put a couple of really rough bits in here. I had to use some clamps basically to keep it down. I've got one, can't see where it is now. This oil filter clamp, which has got quite a wide grip. Use that with a block of wood just to get over this shaped bit here and clamp it down. the standard vice grips were enough to grip it behind here. Now because I've thinned out the metal around here so much, it's like a blade. It's gonna burn through when I go down here. So what I was gonna do is just cleaned off a little bit of mild steel, just basically jam it in there. I can probably just trace a line along here, cut a piece off, pretty much just jam it in there and spot weld onto it and just weld it back a bit. I can grind that back, and then I won't have to hopefully replace any metal here, because if it starts burning back I can just get some welds to stick onto this slightly thicker metal. But it shouldn't actually mess up my line too much for the glass. Yeah, this actually sits up a little bit, so that's going to be a bit of a pain. Just needing to kind of clamp it back. I suppose again I can probably just get a clamp onto there. Yeah, and I probably just like tack it in place. See, there used to be a spot weld there. I mean, this piece used to come back here, but it's not survived contact with the grinder and the spot weld drill bit. So yeah, basically this is a bit of a finicky bit. I thought I'd just include it because it's it's just interesting to see how someone's attempted to tackle this. Okay, cool. I'll just make a quick clip about these holes where these screws used to be. To weld them in, because they've now gone through into the cavity behind the dashboard, I've basically made this little piece of copper pipe which I've flattened off with a hammer, just bent it in a vise like that shot shape, and you can basically just fit it into this gap and just, when it's in, just rotate it around if you get the angle right. And there it is, it like comes out perfectly in behind, you see. I just got mine on a bamboo stick. Just gives it a little bit of weight, holds it in place, and then the welds will just go nicely against the copper there. Right, so I've put the front and back together roughly, only loosely locating it all in place. Trying to get the hang of where these hinges are going to go, because this one is actually floating a bit too much at the moment. You can see it's I think it might be possible to crush it down and get some spot welds in there. The one on the passenger side's actually kind of folding up. It's kind of like roughly where I want it to be. So I think really this part of the game is going to be about getting these panel gaps correct on either side. So really you need to make sure that the wings are properly into the right position. This one still actually is slightly out. I think the inner lip on the scuttle is pushing the wing out a bit, so it's actually, this wing's particularly tight to get in. This whole scuttle operation, this passenger side here, seems to have been a real pain. But we are almost at a point where we can get it fixed. I think now basically I need to make sure that I can properly click it down to its second stage so it's fully closed, and then I shall get some tack welds in. Okay, another update on the bonnet situation. I've detached it and I've just tack welded it in again. Actually a lot more happy with it now. It slightly maybe sits up. This hinge, you can see it underneath, it gets a bit of a gap down here. It really wants to lift right up. But now I've got some tacks that kind of give me a rough location for it. I can take the bonnet off with the bolts that go underneath the bracket and try and actually fix that one down properly. I think that the weight of the bonnet will always pull it up to where it wants it. But kind of improve the lines down here. There's ever so slightly, just a little step on there, but got a reasonable nice gap down there, and I think it's fairly uniform to this side. You've got a reasonable gap down here. Again, we're just tacked in. I think there's just like 2 welds holding it, but this hinge is actually a fair bit flatter. All the problems this job, certainly to me, are up that end, as I keep saying. I think basically, now I just need to unbolt the whole bonnet again, see if I can get that hinge in, you know, for proper, and then test fit the bonnet again, and you know, fingers crossed that it all stays together. So I'll see how that goes. Just coming to solving the issue of this little bonnet release button. Basically I just cut it off the old scuttle panel and I'm putting it roughly where it belongs. How I've approached doing that is pretty simple. Basically just tacks a piece of mild steel on, which feeds just, you know, between these two panels really. I've got a bit of a gap under there, so I can basically just get some support, weld it onto the edge of the new scuttle here, and it should be all firm and good for the job. So I think I've more or less actually finished this now. In terms of the welding, I've got these hinges on fairly solid. The welds aren't particularly pretty or anything like that. It's hard actually to grind them off and make them look nice. Just really hard to fit a grinder in to these gaps. I guess that's why you try and do the spot welds, but I find it quite hard even to make a neat spot weld. Got this one again, fairly solid, plenty of welds. You want it so if you have an accident that the bonnet won't just peel off and go straight into the windscreen. I've managed to get this little switch holder in there, kind of cut it off the old one, just welded it in. Just had to put it back there a little bit because the wing's going to slot on here, down this line. And one thing I did find originally is when they put the wings on, there was quite big gaps here, but with these scuttle panels, you just got to basically fold these flaps up a bit, because to begin with they're like out here, and so the wing comes on and it pushes the wing out. And if you're finding it hard to bolt your wing on, where you've got big gaps, just try bending these up, because they should really conform to this line, which is really sort of, your wing should fit up against that. And if this is like push right out here, then you're not going to get your wing up and you're going to have a big gap. There's also some adjustability on the bonnet, so if you put these screws on loose underneath the bonnet, you can sort of move the bonnet a little bit either side. And the same here, just bent this one up so that when the wing goes on, it'll be nice and flush. So yeah, and now I just need to prime it up. I've got gaps like this. Seam sealer, just going to chuck a load of tiger seal in, and then hopefully that'll be jobs are good and to get the windscreen in. So now I'm moving on to a phase of just priming and painting, I think, and I'm going to do the little wing drainage mod and put some pipes going down through here and draining out the wings. All stuff you can find on YouTube, but hopefully this helps someone out there to do the similar job if they have to encounter it. Update from the end, it's all gone really well. I've got the glass in. I stuck it in with some of this Master Bond adhesive that I got off Amazon. I recommend getting maybe 2 tubes, because although I managed it in one, it was very close, and I did need the other one just to fill in some bits at the end. I still haven't tested it for water tightness. So one of the things that really pranged me out doing this job was the fact that I had to re-weld those hinges on either side. So looking down at the hinge, this one was a pain. It was always riding up probably actually about a centimetre. It was lifting up. I drilled through down here, so on the inside of this hinge, the outside of it I should say, pulled it down with a screw and then started tack welding and plug welding it in. Obviously you've got to get it in the right place first. Things to note, the inner wing that this wing sort of screws onto is, obviously you're not moving that. That's in the same place. This wing's the same thing. Same on that side, the inner wing it bolts to is the same place. You've got the same wing. bonnet's the same width. So as long as these hinges are in the right place, you're going to get it all right. You can see my panel gap about half a finger's width there. And the panel gap this side, going about half a finger's width. It's uniform all the way up. Got it pretty good line down here. Maybe actually that one's a couple of mils out. This one's good. This one's good. The height is really good. Ever so slightly up, I suppose. Maybe a couple of mils up. And yeah, again, good here. Nice curvature across there. And that's pretty much perfect. There's the hinge welded in. Painted it all up with a 2-pack paint system. It's much stronger than just this rattle can stuff. Like I rattle can these. I had to actually do a bit of work on these. Like this one especially, like the typical thing is stuff collects behind here and it's rotted out this bottom bit, and I was going to cut out this whole thing and just blank it off, but I managed to actually re-weld around it and use filler and stuff like that to make it look legit again, and it is a pretty good job actually. I don't think I could tell that it was done. So yeah, 2-pack paint, definitely recommended. But yeah, I'm happy with it now. I'd say don't fear about doing it too much. The big fear I had was, getting the bonnet so it would actually clip down. Definitely make sure you put that bonnet release cable back in before you try and clipping it down to the second stage, because I don't know what would happen if you didn't put that cable in, but I don't think it would be very easy to get the bonnet off without it. There's a lot of opening and closing the bonnet and getting those hinges lined up, and taking it all off and stuff like that. You probably need a hand for it. I did. But yeah, I mean, I hope this is informative and helpful to somebody out there. And shoot me a like if you like it. Thanks very much for watching.